Hi, guys. Today I am talking about the death penalty, and this is going to be a very touchy subject. I know. Um, I want you guys to discuss it down in the comments, but please be respectful of everyone's opinion. Your opinion may not be like mine, and that's 100% okay because I'm still on the fence with the death penalty myself, and I know that I'm not the only person out there who struggles with um, having a solid yay or nay opinion about the death penalty because some cases are so gruesome and so painful for the families. You want those families to be able to get the justice that they deserve. Um, but there's some special factors that we don't seem to consider when it comes down to the death penalty and whether or not the death penalty is really the right sentence for um, these criminals. And I guess I want to start back when I was a little girl. Well, I wasn't that little. I probably was about 12, 13 years old, um, maybe 11. Um, During that time, I spent a lot of time. Well, I mean, the majority of growing up, I actually got into liking or learning about serial killers because I spent so much time with my grandparents who kept the same channel on every single day, which was I was going to be watching Channel 9, I was watching CBS, we're going to watch whatever documentaries or whatever news was coming on during that time. And so I got to learn about that. And also, my grandparents were big readers. So there were lots of magazines and lots of books and stuff that were around, and I was able to read those things because, of course, we didn't have YouTube and um, the internet during that time period when I was younger. So I did a lot of reading, did a lot of research, and also because I am a victim of abuse, that I always wanted to see, what it would lead to. And it also gives me a perspective of being grateful because when you are an abuse victim and you go through things, you can go down two different paths. It's like being in a fork in the road. I was lucky enough to where I was able to get, um, the help that I needed, and I was able to go down a good path. A lot of people are not able to jump right back up and forget their past. A lot of people end up having some really big psychological issues from the abuse and things that they suffered as a child. Some of the people I'm talking about today, I did not experience anything close to what they experienced. Um, but still, it's a hard situation to be in for anybody. And as we go through and we start really looking at these killers and these criminals, scam artists, there were things in their childhood that were red flags, and people seem to just drop the ball. Some of the reason why they dropped the ball was because of the time period. Some of the reason why they dropped the ball was just pure laziness. And these are things that we need to consider when we start talking about punishment for criminals. Um, the biggest thing for me in looking for whether this person deserves capital punishment or not, there are like 4 or 5 different things that I'm looking for. First of all, their background. Did they have any type of abuse going on? And was there any way to really get them the help that they need? Was there anyone trying to get them that help? Second thing I'm looking for is age. If you commit a crime when you're 17 or 18 years old, the brain doesn't stop fully developing until you're 25. And there are things that I did in my teenage years and decisions that I made as a young adult that now going on 40, I would not make those decisions. Also, we need to look at their mental capacity. There are people who are about to be executed who are disabled. And if they don't have the IQ or the mental capacity to really understand their crime, regardless of what a judge says, if it's proper documentation, like before the crime was committed, because you can get your lawyer to doc up anything, um, anything that was prior, and that's the same thing that goes with abuse as well. If there's prior documentation of these things, that needs to be given some type of consideration. And then finally, above all else, and I hate to say it, what the families of the victims think. If the victim's family can deal with them being locked up in prison and never having to see freedom again, then there's no reason to push for the death penalty. However, like I've said before, I have had 2 cousins murdered. I've never had anyone in my immediate family murdered. And there's no way in the world that I want to minimize these victims' families and their feelings and their grief and their pain. No way that I would ever do that. So that's why I say that their opinion has way more weight than any of the other things that I've discussed. And if the only way that their family feels like they can get closure is by the person who committed the crime, their family member's murderer, to be executed, then I say we follow the family's wishes. And that's why, as you can see, I'm really on the fence when it comes down to the death penalty, because I can only picture myself as a mother and losing my child to some type of violence. I don't know how I would feel at that moment. I would want to have the death penalty as an option. I don't know. I hope and pray that I never get in that situation. But there are certain circumstances where I do feel like we might need to revisit the penalty phase. Like I was saying, when I was about 12 or 13 years old, I learned about Karla Faye Tucker. She was kind of everywhere in the news. If you don't know who she is, I suggest you look her up. Karla Faye committed a horrible crime. She was under the influence of drugs and alcohol. She murdered, along with another man named Sean, she murdered a man so that they could steal his motorcycle parts and his motorcycle, because she was hanging around with bikers then. She also murdered a woman by the name of Elizabeth Thornton, and she killed both of them with a pickaxe. And when Karla first got arrested and first started talking about the murders, she said some out there stuff. I am not going to sit here and lie to y'all. She was talking about having orgasms as she was killing them multiple times, and it just wasn't right. So that was kind of disturbing to me, learning about that and listening to that testimony, reading those transcripts. At first, it did not seem like she showed any remorse. But here's a woman in her early 20s who was addicted to drugs and had been living this lifestyle for a long time. To give you a little bit of back history on her childhood, Karla Faye was the product of an affair. Her mother and the man that she assumed was her father had a very tumultuous relationship. Karla's mother treated her more like a friend to hang out with versus an actual mother. She has 2 older sisters, and by the time Karla was 10, she was doing drugs. By the time she was 12, she was out having sex. She was a prostitute by the time she was 14. She was out being a groupie with her mother with different bands in the 70s. And so by the time she committed these murders, she was a hardcore prostitute and a hardcore drug addict. And it's kind of hard to get yourself cleaned up when anytime there's an issue for me, I know I go to my mom. Thank God that she's still here. If I need to talk to her about something, if I have a problem going on, I go to my mom. It doesn't seem like she had anyone in her life that she could really turn to at that time. So once she got in prison, that's when you started to see a change in her. She got involved in the prison ministries that were coming around, and she started to read the Bible, and she really started to accept Christ as her Savior, and she began to live a Christian lifestyle. Now, she did try to have her conviction overturned several times. She had people who spoke up for her that were pretty high profile people. Pope John Paul II, Newt Gingrich, Pat Robertson. These are two diehard conservatives that were speaking out for this woman to not end up being executed. And the whole time, Carla she's steadfast in her faith in God. I wish that I was as devoted to religion as she was, or seemed to be while she was in prison. When we talk about prison and putting people in there, we talk about reforming them. And here's a woman who was reformed. And it's all because she actually was at a place where she could get help for her drug abuse because she didn't have access to it. She could get some of her psychological issues dealt with because she was going through counseling with her pastor. So all of these resources that she should have been able to get on the outside, she was able to get on the inside. But even though she had these high-profile people speak up for her, she was in the state of Texas. We all know how Texas rolls when it comes to the death penalty. Unfortunately for her, in 1998, Governor George W. Bush, who hadn't been elected president yet, was the governor, and he, was like, the verdict is the verdict, and that's what it's going to be. Also, Elizabeth Thornton's husband wanted her to go through the death penalty. He was very vocal, and he thought that a lot of the attention was being taken off of Elizabeth and more of the attention was placed on Carla. And I get it. And in some aspects, he kind of was right. Most people don't know who Elizabeth Thornton is. I do, but a lot of people don't know who she is. Her family does, and those are the people that really, really matter, not someone like me who just investigates the case, and definitely not someone who's just some average Joe walking on the street. Those are not people that invested in it. She had children, she had a husband, she had siblings, a family, mother, father. They're the ones who have to spend their lives dealing with this pain, not us. And so I definitely do not judge him by any means. And I pray that her execution did give him peace. And that's one of the reasons why I say we honor the family's wishes above all else. I wish that he did have, the forgiveness that her brother had. Her brother had forgiven Carla and actually became friends with her. They connected because they were both drug addicts and they had both found Christ. But, in this situation, it was just really sad to me. And it was just a no-win situation for anybody. Carla Faye Tucker never really got to experience life. She never had kids. She married her pastor that was at the prison ministry. She married one of her pastors, and but she never got to live a life. She was pretty much doomed from the start because of how her upbringing was. And the Thorntons have lost a loved one, and there are times like this around Christmas time where they are having to mourn the loss of their loved ones. And Elizabeth Thornton and Jerry Dean, they never got to meet their grandkids, or, their lives were cut short too. And the worst part about Elizabeth Thornton is she was really just in the wrong place at the wrong time, because she was not the target. But I do want to read what Carla said when she died. She said, I was going to read the direct quote, but I'm not. I'm just going to sum it up for you guys to make this video a little bit shorter. She said that she hoped that her execution would give the family peace, and she apologized for what she'd done. She said goodbye to the people who were there on her side. Don't know if you've ever been in an execution room or ever seen one. There are 3 boxes. There's a box where the executioner is. There's a box where the family of the victim is. And then there's a box or viewing area where the family of the criminal is. And so she, told her people who came to sit with her, her loved ones, that she loved them. And then she, as they were giving her the lethal injection, she said, "Praise Jesus," and she started to hum hymns. And So there's a piece in that for me, knowing that to the end she was still steadfast in her religion. Um, but still, if you're going to talk about prison reform, she definitely was one of those ones who could have benefited probably from just life in prison versus the death penalty. But you always want to make sure that you're respecting the family's wishes, and that's one of the reasons why I am on the fence. The next case that is coming up with a woman being executed is Lisa Montgomery, and she is scheduled to be executed in January of 2021 while Donald Trump is still in office, and so far there have not been any stays of execution for her. Lisa is another one who has committed a crime where it is for me an ultimate from one woman to another. This is the type of crime where, when I first heard about it, when it first happened, I said, yes, she deserves to die. Lisa had faked a pregnancy and she went to Skidmore, Missouri. She had been pretending to be interested in some dogs that she was like breeding. And she was going to meet up with Bobby Joe Stinnett in Skidmore, Missouri, just talk about the dogs. They had kind of bonded over both being pregnant. Bonnie Joe was about 8 months pregnant with a little girl who ended up surviving the attack. So Lisa murders Bobby Joe, cuts her baby out of her, takes her baby, and goes back to Kansas where she lived. You're preparing for your child to be born. And this happened in 2004. Bobby Joe was 23. We were the same age. And I had my daughter July of 2004. And Bobby Joe had her daughter, or her daughter was taken from her in December of 2004. So this really hit home for me. And like I said, I had no sympathy for Lisa. She, at that time, I thought she was getting what she deserved because as a mother and just, having a child that is the same age as Bobby Joe's daughter, I cannot imagine my life without her in it. And I would never want my daughter to grow up without her mother. Stepmoms are great. Adopted moms are great. But you're always going to want your mother. So it wasn't until I started to dig into Lisa Montgomery's background, now that we're coming closer to her execution date, that I was able to garner a slightly different aspect of her. Lisa was born back in the 60s. She had an older sister. And her mother was her biological mother, but Lisa's sister had a different mother than she did. The father was in the military, so he was not around much. And Lisa's mother was very, very abusive. She was abusive to her stepdaughter so much that her stepdaughter was able to get away and get taken by Child Protective Services, while 3-year-old Lisa was stuck inside the house. Now, her parents divorced. Lisa's mom still mistreated her, beat her, knocked her out, abused her in so many different ways. But then on top of that, her mother remarried, and her mother married this guy who was a complete jerk who raped Lisa, and she was trafficked out, and we didn't call it trafficking then, but it's called trafficking now, to his friends and other people that he knew. And he, was just a horrible person. And they ended up getting divorced, and Lisa testified. So this is on court documents that this happened, that she was being trafficked by her stepfather. It was part of the divorce proceedings. So none of this was brought up in her trial. The lawyers she had, really didn't know how to defend her. She was probably suffering from all kinds of mental issues and had never received the type of treatment she wanted or needed to be treated. Her first marriage was very, very abusive as well. allegedly, and I'm saying everything allegedly because there's things that have been spoken out in trial in her sentencing phase, and from her sister and other family members. But people knew what was going on with this woman, and they did not do anything to help her. And like I said, when it comes to the death penalty, when you look at those things, and this is something that was documented. So I don't know. I have not heard or read anything about Bobby Joe's family other than they did do a candlelight vigil. I think it was last week or the week before last, for her, and she does need to have her story told, especially for her daughter. Her daughter, I'm pretty sure whoever is around is letting them know how much. Letting her know how much her mother loved her and wanted her and was excited to have her. And that's definitely something that I would want my children to know if something like this were to happen to me. And that's why, like I said, I'm on the fence when it comes to death penalty, because I see how this woman did not have a chance in life to really be successful, because she did not receive the help that she needed. However, you can't, you could have possibly ruined another life by taking a mother away from their child. And so I'm on the fence when it comes to her. I don't know much about her reform in prison, unlike Carla Faye Tucker. I don't know if Lisa's found religion. I don't know if she's been a model prisoner. So that's not something I can really testify to, that she's actually been reformed and that maybe prison is the best place for her because she can actually have the help that she needed, or that she needs. But what I do know is that when January comes, I pray that, if the family wants this, that they are able to find the closure that they need to be able to start the healing process. I also hope that one day they can have some forgiveness. If that's one thing that I have learned, is that you have to forgive the people who hurt you. If you don't forgive the people who hurt you, you will continue to hurt yourself. And then the last person I want to talk about, because I definitely don't want to let this person go by either, is Brandon Bernard. He was just executed a couple weeks ago. He got a little bit of notoriety because of his association with Kim Kardashian, trying to get his sentence overturned. Unfortunately, that did not happen. He was a model prisoner. He was only 18, and he was part of a crew that murdered some youth ministers back in 1999. Brandon kind of hits me hard a little bit too, because he's only 1 year older than I am. And I'm not sure what his family life was, but I know he got wrapped up with some horrible people. And at 18, I have a son who's 18 and another son that's 19. And I would not want them to be judged based upon the things that they have done as teenagers. And I'm a mama that keeps my kids close. So I know their friends, and I try to be all up in there, even though they are legally adults. Like I said, the brain does not stop developing until you're 25. But Brandon, he did not kill the youth ministers, but he was part of the reason why they died. There was an opportunity for him to go and get help. He didn't go get help. He just robbing people. Just kids just make some horrible choices. And I view him as a kid. He had two other criminals along with him who were teenagers and were not considered adults at that time. And they were tried in juvenile court. Brandon had turned 18, so he was tried as an adult along with the actual person who did the actual killing. He was already executed, and Brandon just got executed. I don't know, guys. This one, the death penalty is just it's a hard topic for me. It's hard for me to make a definite yay or nay, because when I think about um, people who really deserve the death penalty, who have done some horrific things to people just for the fun of it, just for the thrill, yeah, they have issues. Um, but still, especially people who do things to children, those are the worst. We had a little girl back when I was in fifth grade, and I'm not going to mention her name, and I'm not going to mention the guy's name who did these acts to her, because I may have some of you guys that follow me on some of my social media who's related to them, because you guys are from my area, most of you. And he did something horrific to her, and she ended up dying. And he did get the death penalty. And I was in the fifth grade. She was in kindergarten. We were at the same school. I was scared, and I wanted him to die. And so, like I said, it puts me on the fence. And I want to hear from you guys. What is your opinion on the death penalty? Do you think it's barbaric and we need to get rid of it? Do you think that it's something that, we really need to have in order to discourage crime? And also, and I didn't cover this, but also, how do you guys feel about people who are getting exonerated from crimes that they didn't commit now that DNA has gotten so much better, or they've come to find out that witnesses and stuff have lied? I don't think we've had anyone on death row that has been exonerated based upon new evidence. I don't think, don't quote me. But gosh, this is just as tough to me as abortion. So, let me know what you think. If you like my channel, please subscribe. If you like this video, hit that like button, and I will see you guys in another video. If I don't post a video before Christmas, or whatever religion's holiday you're celebrating, if you're not celebrating any holiday this year and you're just going to get yourself turned up on Christmas Day in your house, COVID is real, guys, in your house. I hope you guys enjoy your winter break, and y'all have a good night.